Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Nothing Like a Good Book. And thank you for the emails. Yes, we will keep it up. And yes, we're going to continue on with great authors for you like the one I have today. And it's May, of course, isn't it? Well, that's ALS Awareness Month, coinciding with the release of this particular book, The Widow Chose Red. In sharing her story, Rachel Kerr Schneider contributes to a growing community of people whose lives have been impacted by this terrible disease. Now, through her faith and the support system she built around her, it becomes a story of resilience during the darkest times. Expertly written and thought-provoking, The Widow Chose Red is important for people in all walks of life. You never know when the worst will happen. And it takes a great deal of strength to come out onto the other side. So for this episode, folks, we have reflections on loss, love, and faith. Rachel Kerr Schneider's journey through a heartbreaking diagnosis, and the book is just in time for ALS Awareness Month this May. Okay, so welcome to Nothing Like a Good Book, Rachel, lovely Kerr Schneider. How you doing?
I'm good, Mark, and good day to you.
Interesting cover of the book, lovely red, and The Widow Chose Red. We'll get into that in a little bit later. Patty Aubrey of the New York Times, she's a best-selling author of Chicken Soup for the Christian Soul. She has this to say: this book is more than a story. It's about loss, and it's about love, it's about faith, and more importantly, it's about resilience. And it's now an Amazon hot new release in the spiritual biography category. Well done. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
You showed up to your husband's funeral in all red. Okay. Why?
Because it was a celebration of his life, and red to me represents the color of love, the color of passion, and also in the Bible, the Holy Spirit is represented by the flame, and the color of the flame is red as well. And I wanted to make sure that people understood that although John died in a very brutal and devastating way, he lived and finished so well. And that was the focus. I wanted to celebrate how well he lived and also how well he died.
Interesting, too, that the color red, right, is the actual color of the brand color of the ALS Association. You know, I mean, how do we think about the unthinkable? It's very hard in life. A lot of people, and you're going to be able to help a lot of people with this interview today. You're going to share how you got through it all. You were a Dallas-based author originally. You were faced with this reality, so you went through an awful lot, but you decided to write this to share with others and help. It just coincides releasing this May, and The Widow Chose Red. My journey with Jesus, John, and ALS shares the heartbreak and humor in helping a husband finish well after his diagnosis. And I'm going to read some more accolades for you a little bit later on, but for now I want to ask you, in simple terms, ALS, which is also called Lou Gehrig's disease, it causes the muscles to break down until they lose functionality altogether, and ultimately time to pass. Now, you make this journey while raising young children, running the home, planning for an uncertain financial future, managing medical treatments, and, welcoming hospice and accepting the help of supportive friends and so on, relatives. You did an awful lot. Did this help you get through it all, do you think?
I do. And I think that for anyone who is undergoing a challenge, a health crisis, it's important to understand what your limits are. And, some days those limits are greater and some days they're smaller. And so it was really important for myself and for my husband to take some time after we got this diagnosis to really kind of figure out how we wanted to approach it. And also for John to acknowledge how he wanted to handle this, and for me to be able to honor those wishes the best way I could.
How was life before all this came about?
Pretty standard, Mark. You know, we were a young couple who had been married for 24 years. John had been climbing the corporate ladder very successfully. I was the trailing spouse, so to speak, setting up home and a career as I followed him. And you know, we had these two small boys that we were raising, and life was good. And I will tell you quite honestly, it never occurred to me that, I mean, we all know things change in our life. We know that that's an absolute, nothing ever stays the same, but we certainly don't expect sometimes to get thrown these curveballs. And John had been an athlete. He, you know, was used to having some aches and pains that didn't resolve quite quickly. And yet this one situation was not clearing up. And not unlike a lot of people that are diagnosed with this disease, he had symptoms about a year before they could finally figure out exactly what it was.
Well, I can relate to that personally, very much so. The boys, on the front cover of the book, the widow chose red. There's a taller one and a shorter one. What are their names?
Yes, so John is the taller one. Jake is the younger one. They were 10 and 14 when their dad died. And that's an actual photo that was taken. We had just stepped out the front door and we're heading to the church for John's celebration of life. Both of the boys are also wearing one of their dad's ties.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, they look very smart. Very smart indeed. It's a lovely picture of the three of you. It's going to be up on my site on markbishopmedia.com under Nothing Like a Good Book. And I'll be so excited because I'm working on a whole dedicated new site to Nothing Like a Good Book where it'll even be featured more. Now, it's got to be challenging to remain Christ-like while living in a cloud of chaos, Rachel. I mean, you share that there's never enough time to breathe, to sleep, to eat, even to relax. To pray, in fact, or take a bath for that matter. However, there's plenty of time to suffer. That doesn't leave you. On a very personal level, you write how you accessed your reservoir of faith to cope with heartache, hopelessness, and hurt. What say you on that?
Well, I will tell you that I grew up in a very faith-based family. I was in church every Sunday, all the time, morning, noon, and night. What happened for me, Mark, and for my husband is that our faith changed and it became much more real to us that we were not in control and in charge of our life. And when you come to the end of your rope and you don't have the answers, that's the time when you say, okay, Lord, I am surrendering and giving it all up to you. And one of the things that I want to encourage people who are believers and people of faith is to remember that we've all been gifted with this supernatural superpower within us, which is in the form of the Holy Spirit. And a lot of times we forget that. And caregiving is an exhausting, overwhelming experience. It's also one of the highest levels of service that we can give to a loved one. And there are moments, and I experienced many of them, where I just couldn't even think straight because there were so many things that needed to get done, whether it was caring for John or caring for my children. And when those moments hit, I had to just say, okay, Holy Spirit, please intercede for me. I can't even think straight. I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to pray. I'm so exhausted. Please intercede for me because you know what it is that I need to get through this next day, this next moment. Please give me what I need at this moment.
Yeah, well, you don't shy away from the hard parts. I noticed that in the book. In fact, Grady Harp, a highly recognized Amazon Top 100 Hall of Fame reviewer, he gave you 5 stars. Is this your first book?
It is. Hopefully not my last, though, Mark.
Good on you. Well, you let everybody into your moments of fear and sadness and uncertainty. But I guess, according to him, he says, what makes her story so powerful is how she responded. You know, a lot of people can sit down in a corner and throw it away. Rachel's Stories isn't just about her husband's ALS diagnosis. It's about relationships, community, self-reflection, and much more. Her recollection of the events is portrayed alongside her journal entries, providing a real-time reaction to the tragedy. So Rachel Kerr Schneider places before the public this sensitive, entertaining, compassionate, and, yes, even humorous at times memoir and spiritual guide. And in doing so, she provides support for those encountering tragedy, words and thoughts to cope. You know, Rachel, I got to tell you, I'm a great believer of, yes, he may have passed, but he's still with you.
Yes. Yes, and I document a couple of those instances in the book as well, Mark. Thank you for bringing that up, because I do believe that yes, they live in our hearts and in our minds always. And I will tell you that my boys were very young, as we've talked about. And one of the things that is so difficult is when Father's Day does roll around. Mm-hmm. And that was one of my husband's, it was the thing that brought him to tears every time, was knowing that he was not going to see his boys grow up into the young men that they are today. But my youngest one, Jake, is the one that reminds me physically so much of his father and in certain aspects of his character. And it just breaks my heart, Mark, when I'll say to him, "Oh, Jake, you remind me so much of your father." And he will look at me and he'll say, "Mom, it's just so hard for me to remember Dad." And so part of what my responsibility is to keep that legacy alive and remind the boys. And I had the foresight, Mark, to videotape the service. Now, this was 14 years ago that John passed. Mm-hmm. And so I videotaped it so that they could actually see it and remember it, not through my eyes, but as it was. And then there were stories that people told about their dad later at the celebration of life, so that they could hear those stories as well. And there are QR codes in the book that will link you to that actual videotape, so the reader can experience it as well.
I don't know if I got that, you know. I wouldn't mind getting that from you, so I can put the link, you know, underneath your bio in the story. And then if people want to go to that and look at it, they can. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Right. I'd be happy to provide that to you, Mark.
Okay.
I got to keep you on your toes a little bit, you know?
Just send. Okay. All righty. Remind me at the end, just the address. It's very easy, mark@markbishopmedia.com. All right?
Got it.
Now, May. It is ALS Awareness Month, coinciding with the release of your book, The Widow Chose Red, in sharing your story. And you contribute a growing love and support and advice through your faith and the support system to a community of people. The Widow Chose Red is important for people in all walks of life, not just those who may have lost a loved one through ALS, but anybody suffering a downtime right now. It is hard, you know, passing on. I just wish there was a life with no passing on. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Absolutely.
You know,
yes.
You never know when the worst is going to happen, but it's not. It's all part of the game, and it's all part of our learning process, and it takes a great deal of strength to come out on the other side. Tell us, if you don't mind, I don't think it's too personal in this case, but how was John affected with ALS? What hit him first? What did it do to his body?
That's a good question, Mark. Actually, he noticed a drop in his foot and a loss of a little bit of strength. And he just thought maybe at first it was a pull. You know, as I mentioned, he was an athlete, and so he was inclined to get those kinds of things. So he started seeing a neurologist, unbeknownst to me. And over the course of a year, the neurologist realized, and John did too, this wasn't getting any better. So John had an executive physical scheduled at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. We lived in Minnesota at the time. And he took the file with him. And he called me and said, I'm coming back. They want you to come to the Mayo with me tomorrow. And I was like, John, that's a 2.5 hour drive. Stay up there overnight and just I'll come later. And he said, no, I'm coming back tonight. He walked in, the kids were asleep. I was in bed reading, and he looked at me and he said, they think I have this disease. I'm going to die. I said, wait, slow down.
Yeah, right.
But my husband was not given to over dramatic, expressions. And so he said, yeah, I've got ALS. I'm like, I don't know what is that? He goes, Lou Gehrig's disease. I go, I don't know what that is either.
Right.
And so and that's not unusual, Mark. It's still a very rare disease. And there are only about 30,000 people in the United States right now that are living with it. And between 5,000 and 6,000 will be diagnosed this year. And unfortunately, the diagnosis has not changed since my husband got his 17 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It is a death sentence, and you usually have between 2 and 5 years to live.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we went to the Mayo, and it is a diagnosis that no doctor wants to give and no patient wants to get.
Mm-hmm.
Through a series of tests, they just go through and really, eliminate a lot of possibilities. And then you're given the news, and the process is you go to a clinic every 3 months, and all they do is just monitor the progression of the disease.
Yeah.
And ultimately, as you said earlier, it's the motor neurons that die. Your diaphragm is a muscle, and it quits. It can't operate anymore. It can't move your lungs. So the patient actually ends up suffocating.
Yeah, it's a horrible disease, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I just can't wait for, we're just a little bit behind. Once CRISPR technology comes along, they've already done one thing, but we're 10 years away. But there's going to be a lot of things change for people when they can get right into the DNA and remove certain things because it's already working. And but it wasn't meant to be, and that's life is the way it is. In fact, I want to ask you, you were brought up, was it the Catholic religion?
No, my father was Southern Baptist and my mother was Lutheran.
Okay, whatever. You were a Christian family, right?
Yes,
That's the bottom line. And you went to
Yes.
church on Sundays and you did all the goody things, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
So what happened? I want to know, how did your faith change when all this happened?
I think it became much more real to me. All of the biblical knowledge that I had was not important. It became more important to have that relationship with Jesus and to realize that he suffered on this earth and what he did for us, and knowing that he was with me every step of the way, and knowing that even though I didn't have the answers, I didn't know, what would happen after John would be gone. There was so much I didn't know, but what I do know and still believe is that he doesn't drop us. He doesn't leave us. He is always with us, and his plans are ultimately things that are beyond our imagination, that we can't even conceive for ourselves. But if we continue to believe and trust in him, things will work out for our good.
This book is The Widow Chose Red on Amazon, the hot new release in the spiritual biography category. Here's an excerpt. John and I had been married for 21 years when everything changed. We had a marriage built on trust, respect, and faith. We enjoyed a relationship based on support and substance. We were blessed. We were a team who could tackle any challenge and function fabulously under pressure. We dealt with a lot, especially during his last 3 years. When our life became an insurmountable challenge, I wondered if my faith was enough. Caregiving is exhausting. It's consuming. It is thankless, monotonous, and challenging. Yet, she says, giving care is one of the most tangible ways we show someone we love them. And yet, in the monotony of daily activity and caregiving, the responsibility of care is a heavy, heavy load. That's beautiful.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, it brought tears to my eyes, to be honest. It reminded me of my mom.
Oh,
Well, I was with her in the room. There's nothing worse. You were talking before about being given the diagnosis. I was in a room with her, just with a doctor I'd never met in my life, and it was a specialist, and the door was closed. And I hated his job. He had to tell her, she had cancer and cancer in the lungs, which had come up through the body, and she didn't have long to live, and I had to bury her. She was only 58, so young.
oh, Mark.
But she's with God. Anyway, beautiful book. Beautiful book. Now, what am I going to do? After John's brother also died, oh, my God, of terminal illness.
Yes.
Was there anything, it taught you ahead of John's passing? Were there any things you were prepared for, or was it entirely different, when it was happening in your immediate family?
It's a great question. Ronald died at 40, and he was not a particularly religious person. And so I think for me, planning a celebration of life for someone who, is kind of in a different space about that makes it a little different. But what I do know is both Ronald and John, although they died 10 years apart, they both handled their journeys with dignity. They were both very high achievers. They were both very successful in their respective careers. They both stepped outside of the box for experimental treatments. And they both finished well. They were both able to pass in their respective homes. And we were able to really celebrate all of the good that they brought into their life, even though they both passed in very terrible and devastating ways.
Yeah. What were some of the biggest changes, do you think, that you had to make, in your life after your husband's diagnosis?
Oh, well, I really had to just kind of realize, life is put into perspective very quickly, Mark, when you get news like this about someone that you care about. The things that seem so important are not anymore, and you just refocus through a different lens. And so, making sure, as I said earlier, honoring John's wishes. I thought, okay, what do you want to do? We've got 2 to 5 years. Do you want to go climb Mount Everest? Do you want to sail around the world? What do you want to do? Because I would have something on my list, Mark. I would. But he said, Rachel, I just want to continue to live as normal a life as possible with you and the boys. And I had to say, all right, that might not necessarily be what I would want to do, but if that's what your choice is, John, then I am here to support you every which way that I can. And please don't think that this was easy. I sought out a therapist, a faith-based therapist.
Mm-hmm.
My husband's like, are you going to leave me now? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to leave you now. We're in this till death do us part, but death is going to part us sooner than
it's a famous
later.
saying, yeah.
Yes, it is. And I just really I needed to make sure that when he was gone, I would be able to still manage and have myself somewhat intact to take care of these 2 young boys.
I think, that just upsets me. People marry so young. 52% of marriages divorce in America. And it affects a lot of people. And, I was brought up that way, till death do us part. And no matter what you go through, you've just got to find a way if you believe that. But it's strong. Why did you wait, though, for over a year to share the diagnosis with your boys?
Well, because number one, we were still, we were still in shock somewhat, and John wasn't. You couldn't tell by looking at him, Mark. He wasn't that symptomatic. You really had to watch to see his gait was off or that foot had dropped. So to them, their dad just looked like their dad. Well, within a year, and anyone who has followed someone with this disease, a lot changes. And so it became very apparent that something was wrong with Daddy. And so we sat them down, and we didn't want to overwhelm them with information, but we said very clearly, excuse me, we said very clearly, Daddy is sick. And our youngest, Jake, once again, he said, well, is Daddy going to be in a wheelchair? And yes, Daddy's going to be in a wheelchair. Okay. Second question, is Daddy going to get out of the wheelchair? Probably not. And third question, is Daddy going to get better?
Right.
And those are the ones, Mark, that you don't have and you said, it was probably not, but we serve a great God who can heal anybody of anything at any time. And we're going to pray every night that Daddy gets better. But in the meantime, we're going to take as best a care of him as we possibly can. And then, of course, they were out of there, and then the phone started blowing up because they were telling their friends, right? My dad's sick. He's got this thing and with ALS. And so then my phone started blowing up. My son just said, Rachel, does John really have this? And, good news travels fast, Mark.
Yeah,
bad news travels even faster. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
This part was poignant. It came out to me in the book. When the boys got home around 6 p.m., we went to the basement and I said, your father has gone to heaven. I believe it was Jake who asked, you mean he died? I answered, yes. And we all burst into tears. I was so sad for all of us, but more for them. I said, your daddy passed very peacefully and he's gone. Oh, because grief doesn't go away, it changes, it softens, and faith blunts the sharp edges. The book is called The Widow Chose Red. When I first heard the title before anything else, I was like, anybody else naughty and thought, hello, what's this, a sex book or what is it? Because of the red business, So it was intriguing, and it's a beautiful book, a beautiful sharing story of how to behave, how to get through the tough times in a very tough situation when something in your own family happens that way. And it's on Amazon. In fact, it was the hot new release, the spiritual biography category. Did you expect that when you wrote this?
I can't say that I did. It's been a wonderful surprise, Mark.
That's good. That's good. You're entitled to a nice surprise. You know that, don't you?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Lauren Lee, she's a writer and editor. She says Rachel is indeed the very definition of red, fiery, passionate, and loving. Her reflection on her husband's tragic passing and everything surrounding it is powerful and is an important message in these trying times. Oh boy, are they ever. So what's in for you going forward now? Are you doing any book signings or what's happening? Anything?
I am, Mark. Thank you for that. We just did the launch party here in Dallas last week. Patty Aubrey flew in for that, which was just amazing. And yes, I am just doing different signings and different speaking engagements. And then I'm writing book 2 and book 3. This is what you would call a serial memoir. And book 2 is titled The Boys, the Bible, and the Battles. And that will pick up the story of what it was like for me to raise my boys as a single mom and my oldest son's battle with addiction. And then the third book will cover God, the guy, and the girls, and will tell the story of how I was introduced to a widower and became a bonus mom 2 years ago to 4 girls after dating 10 years long distance.
Wow, congrats. Oh, well, I guess John's happy for you too then, huh?
I think so. I would hope so.
Well, that's not bad because you brought up an interesting point. Of late, there's a lot passing this year. And private people I know, to friends, and I knew their wives or knew their husbands very well, and so on, and they've passed and they've spent a year or something, and next minute, so help me Bob, they're getting married again, and I say, well, hang on a minute, I mean, the body's still warm in the grave, for God's sake, I can't get over it, but people are people and got their own reasons and they got their own thing. At least you took 10 years. You know what I
I
mean?
did. I did. Mark, well, it was very important. Remember, our children were very young,
Yes.
and it was very important for them to know that they were the priority, and they were. And we managed to make sure that they all got through high school, and then we decided, okay, we have looked out for them, we've
Hmm.
relocated for them. And so yeah, so I feel like I'm still a newlywed because it's only been 2 years, and now we're living in the same place at the same time, which we
Ah,
didn't do,
all
so it's
right.
been wonderful.
No, you've been blessed, and it's all meant to be. And I tell you what, John would be as happy as Larry. I am sure of that. You deserve it, and the kids deserve it. A bit sad to hear though about John Senior being into. Was it into drugs? What did he fall into? What happened?
John started out with marijuana,
Yeah.
which of course, it seems to be a lot of people have opinions about that. But when
Hmm.
you're 14 years old, or actually he had started sooner,
Hmm.
and then, I'm running into this situation. How much is adolescence? He
Yes.
had just started high school.
Yeah.
How much is grief? And quite honestly, Mark, drugs never crossed my mind.
They never do.
Never
They
crossed my,
never
yeah,
do, and you never know unless
correct.
you smell it, unless you catch them red-handed doing it, or unless. Oh, look, there's lots of ways, but that's the start. And they try to say, look,
Yes.
it's not damaging, it's not this, it's not that. They live on the damn stuff, and they get so bored with marijuana, they then go and try something stronger. Right, and then
Yes.
for the hell of it, at a rave dance or something else somewhere, you try this pill. Next minute, you've got a fentanyl case. It's really sad, the drug scene from that point of view. But I don't want to wipe your book with that now. But he's okay. He's come good.
Yes, both of my boys are great.
Great.
John is, yes. So thank you for asking. I
John and
appreciate
Jake.
that.
And what are the girls'
Yes.
names now? Now you've got
So
girls.
the girls are Isabella, Sophia, Catherine, and Lily.
Oh, no. Lily Marlene. Dum-do-do-do-do. Anyway, that's lovely. 4 girls as well. So there's 6. You must have a lovely Thanksgiving.
Well, I will tell you, it can be a bit hectic. You're welcome to come. You're welcome to come, Mark, and see for yourself.
You're in Dallas?
I am in Dallas. Yes, I
All
am.
right, never been to Dallas, but one day I'll get there. Listen, good luck with your
Absolutely.
book signing and your moving around, and I'll get this up on the site. Don't forget to send me the link of that's unusual, the link of the funeral. No one's done that one before, but I think
Yes.
I think it's part of it. If people, because see, to me, a book is like audio. It's a theater of the mind, and people have their own visions. And
Yes.
when they might be reading the book and think, gee, I wonder what sort of funeral it would have been. I can imagine this or I can imagine that. Well, all you got to do is hit the button and you can look at it. So
Absolutely.
that's a way. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Good luck with the book. The Widow Chose Red. My Journey with Jesus, John, and ALS. And don't forget, it's ALS month. So care for those around you. Thank you, Rachel. Take care.
Thank you, Mark. Godspeed.